So have you ever pushed through a workout so intensely that the next day you could barely walk down a single flight of stairs?
Oh, yeah. We have definitely all been there.
Right. And yet, as you are physically waddling around your house, holding onto the walls because your quads are absolutely screaming, you somehow feel this weird sense of pride about the total exhaustion.
Oh, 100%. It's like a badge of honor.
Exactly. You think to yourself, well, if it hurts this much, I must have really put in the work yesterday. We treat extreme soreness like it is the ultimate receipt for a good gym session.
Yeah, it is deeply ingrained in fitness culture to view physical suffering as, well, the primary metric of success. We learn very early on to wear that systemic inflammation like a badge of honor, basically assuming it's undeniable proof that we are committed to our long-term health.
But what if that badge of honor is actually like a massive biological warning sign? Welcome to the Deep Dive. I am your host, and today we are looking at a really interesting excerpt titled, Why Fitness Experts Are Paying Attention to Biodynamics.
Right, which comes from a much larger, frankly fascinating text called The Evolution of Joint Mobility and Recovery Strategy.
Yep, that's the one. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore a massive paradigm shift that is completely rewriting how gyms, sports clinics, and everyday athletes operate. The fitness world is rapidly abandoning the push harder at all costs mentality.
They really are, and they are replacing it with an obsession over two very specific things: joint hydration and mobility.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because for the better part of a century, sheer intensity was pretty much the only thing anyone cared about.
Oh, absolutely. If you look back just a decade ago to the massive boom of extreme boot camps and high-intensity interval training, the entire industry celebrated total depletion.
Yeah, it was intense.
Right. The prevailing mindset was dangerously straightforward. It was just heavier weights, faster sprints, zero rest. If you weren't drenched in a pool of your own sweat, or, if you didn't feel physically broken after leg day, the consensus was that you left gains on the table. Trainers were practically acting like drill sergeants.
I remember that era vividly. You would see people literally throwing up into trash cans at the gym, and everyone would just high-five them.
It's wild to think about now.
It really is. But the sources we are looking at today point out that this era of pure intensity is creating a massive wave of consequences for people right now.
Yeah, sports professionals are currently dealing with the direct fallout of that unsustainable approach. When you constantly apply maximum force to your structural frame without prioritizing how that frame rebuilds itself, you aren't just building muscle.
Right, you're doing a lot more than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are cultivating persistent stiffness, drastically reducing your mobility, and creating micro-traumas in your connective tissue. Over time, that manifests as heavily restricted range of motion and a massive spike in overuse injuries.
Wow.
You basically force your body into a chronic state of stress and inflammation because the recovery side of the equation is just left completely blank.
Okay, but I have to pause you there, though, because if I am doing high-intensity interval training, my heart rate is up, I am improving my cardiovascular health, and I am building denser muscle fibers.
Sure, yeah.
So, are the researchers genuinely suggesting people should just stop trying hard and sit on a yoga mat doing gentle stretches all day?
No, not at all. High intensity is absolutely valuable for cardiovascular health and metabolic conditioning. The issue the research highlights isn't the intensity itself, it is the ratio of intensity to recovery.
Ah, okay, the ratio.
Right. Pure intensity without proportional targeted recovery actually creates a ceiling on your progress. It ruins your movement quality. Think about what happens biologically during a heavy lift.
Okay.
You are placing sheer mechanical stress on your cartilage, your ligaments, and your tendons. And those tissues do not have the same rich blood supply that your muscles do.
Which means what exactly?
It means they repair much, much slower. So if you hit them again and again, the tightness compounds. The muscles might be getting bigger, but the physical framework anchoring them is degrading.
Man, which opens up a huge logical gap in how we view fitness. Because it is entirely possible, and actually incredibly common, I think, to have massive, undeniably strong muscles, but simultaneously be physically incapable of moving them the way a human body is supposed to.
That phenomenon right there is essentially the mobility paradox. We have built a generation of people who look like Greek statues, but, well, they move like them too.
Huh. They move like Greek statues. That is so accurate. I love how the source material breaks this down, because this shift toward mobility training is no longer just some fringe alternative concept.
Not at all.
Personal trainers, functional fitness coaches, sports rehabilitation scientists, they are all prioritizing mobility over raw strength now. And the text makes a crucial distinction here. Mobility is not the same thing as flexibility.
That is a huge point to clarify.
Right, flexibility is just whether a muscle can lengthen passively. But mobility is how freely, actively, and efficiently your actual joints can move through their full intended range of motion under load.
And that distinction changes everything about how we evaluate physical fitness. You can have the explosive muscular power to squat 400 pounds, but if your ankle and hip joints lack the requisite mobility to drop into that position safely, your body is going to violently compensate.
Ouch.
Yeah.
It will pull your lower back out of alignment or force your knees to cave inward. The source details exactly what happens when that movement is restricted.
And the examples in the text are things almost everyone listening has probably experienced at some point. Like, without baseline mobility, your hips pinch when you squat. Running sends this jarring, stiff shock wave up your shins.
Oh, shin splints are the worst.
The absolute worst. Or your shoulders feel totally locked up when you try to reach overhead.
Yeah.
Even just carrying groceries or twisting to look behind you in the car requires extra effort. Eventually, those restricted movement patterns permanently alter your posture and destroy your balance.
Yeah, you are basically forcing your nervous system to fight against its own internal resistance every time you take a step. Modern sports science recognizes that smooth joint function isn't a luxury. It is the mandatory foundation required before you add speed or weight.
So what does this all mean? Let's visualize it like this. Imagine you are building a custom sports car, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
And you spend all your time, money, and energy dropping a massive 500 horsepower engine under the hood. That engine is your muscle strength. But while you were obsessing over the engine, you completely ignored the wheels, the axles, and the suspension.
Oh, man.
Yeah, now they are heavily rusted and locked in place. It absolutely does not matter how much raw force that 500 horsepower engine can generate. The power is completely useless if the parts can't actually turn smoothly. You're just going to burn out the transmission trying to force the car forward.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it because it highlights the mechanical failure perfectly. You have the force generation, but the biological chassis transferring that force is totally compromised.
But that leads to an obvious question. If my muscles are getting stronger through exercise, shouldn't my joints automatically adapt to support them? I mean, why exactly do our joints start rusting in the first place?
That is the million-dollar question.
I think most people, maybe even you listening right now, just assume that waking up with stiff, clicking knees is a normal, unavoidable tax you pay for getting older.
Right, but the scientific community is aggressively pushing back against the idea that joint degradation is just a symptom of the calendar pages turning. They are looking at the molecular mechanics of stiffness.
Okay, so it's not just age.
Exactly. The root cause identified by these researchers is not time. It is a specific physical depletion. It's the loss of joint hydration and a critical molecule called synovial fluid.
And this is where we dive into the secret science of stiffness, which I found totally mind-blowing.
What's fascinating here is the specific biological mechanism at play. Let's step away from the rusted car analogy for a second and look at how human cartilage actually survives. Cartilage does not have its own blood supply.
Wait, really? None at all?
None. So to get nutrients and to stay lubricated, your joints act like dense sponges. When you put weight on a joint, you compress the sponge, squeezing out old fluid and cellular waste.
Okay.
Then, when you take the weight off, the sponge expands, sucking in fresh, nutrient-rich synovial fluid. That fluid is thick and viscous, kind of like egg whites. It provides the internal cushioning that prevents your bones from grinding together.
Like oil in a machine.
Exactly like oil in a machine.
So when that sponge dries out, the friction inside the joint skyrockets. That is the physical sensation of stiffness. It's not that your knee is broken, it's that it is completely parched.
Yes.
But the source material points out a genuinely surprising demographic trend here. This drying out process is not exclusive to seniors. It is heavily documented in people in their 30s and 40s who exercise frequently. And it is highly prevalent in people who just sit at a desk all day.
Yeah, the biology explains exactly why those younger demographics are suffering too. If you sit at a desk for 9 hours a day, your joints are frozen in a bent position. You are not providing the mechanical pumping action required to cycle that fluid, so the sponge essentially dries up from lack of use.
That makes total sense. And the other extreme.
On the other end of the spectrum, if you are doing heavy powerlifting 6 days a week, you are constantly compressing the sponge without giving it adequate time to reabsorb the fluid. Both the totally sedentary lifestyle and the extremely intense lifestyle disrupt the hydration mechanics of the joint.
So if you are a professional athlete, like someone whose multi-million-dollar career depends entirely on not letting that joint sponge dry out,
Yeah.
how are you solving this? What is modern science doing to fix the root cause instead of just handing out ice packs?
Well, elite athletes treat their joint hydration with the exact same rigor they treat their diet. They mandate daily mobility sessions, active recovery therapy, and targeted supplementation.
They treat recovery as a performance strategy.
Exactly. Their goal isn't just to survive a grueling workout today, it is to ensure their joints glide smoothly 10 years from now. For them, active maintenance of the joint capsule is a non-negotiable performance strategy.
Which brings us to the specific solution highlighted in the source, a dietary supplement called BIODYNAMIX, which is also known as Joint Genesis. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I agree.
Because I have to be totally honest with you, I am incredibly skeptical of the joint supplement industry. You walk down the pharmacy aisle, and it is just wall-to-wall glucosamine and chondroitin, and half the people who take them say they don't feel a single difference.
It's true. A lot of people see zero results.
So what makes this biodynamics protocol, which claims to be backed by Ivy League research, any different from the generic stuff?
Your skepticism is entirely warranted. Because for decades, joint supplements were mostly just masking symptoms or providing building blocks the body couldn't even absorb properly. But the Ivy League research behind biodynamics looked at the specific chemical reason our joints dry out in the first place. As we age, or as we endure chronic physical stress, an enzyme in our body actually begins to attack and break down our naturally occurring hyaluronic acid.
Hyaluronic acid, I've heard of that in skincare, but what does it do in joints?
It is the specific molecule that holds water inside the synovial fluid. It's what makes the fluid thick and bouncy.
Okay, so the body is basically producing a chemical that thins out its own joint fluid.
Precisely. The fluid loses its viscosity, it becomes thin and watery, and the joint loses its shock absorption. Traditional supplements completely ignore this mechanism.
They were just throwing ingredients at the wall to see what sticks.
Exactly. Biodynamics takes a fundamentally different route by introducing a specialized, naturally occurring matrix, often utilizing a patented compound that survives the digestive tract. It doesn't just try to numb the nerve endings. It works to inhibit that destructive enzyme while simultaneously stimulating the body's own endogenous production of hyaluronic acid.
Okay, so wait. The goal isn't just to swallow a pill that lubricates the joint directly, which honestly sounds biologically impossible anyway.
Right, it is impossible.
But the goal is to give the body the exact biological signal it needs to start manufacturing its own thick, viscous synovial fluid again.
That is the crucial differentiator. You are restoring the internal environment. When you repopulate that hyaluronic acid, the synovial fluid thickens up. The cartilage sponge can finally hold on to moisture again.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, and the clinical outcomes detailed in the research show that by addressing this specific molecular drought, movement becomes significantly smoother. The mechanical friction that triggers the inflammatory response drops drastically.
Which allows the joint to actually absorb impact the way human anatomy intended. And what I find so compelling about this is that this deep cellular approach to joint health isn't just restricted to NBA players trying to extend their contracts. The text ties this directly to what is arguably the most dominant trend in the fitness world for everyday people right now.
Yes, the explosive shift toward longevity training.
It's everywhere. People are completely redefining why they even bother working out.
10 or 15 years ago, the primary motivator for walking into a gym was almost purely aesthetic. It was about dropping body fat for a vacation or getting your biceps to a certain measurement.
Looking good in the mirror.
Exactly. But today, the data shows a massive pivot. People are training for health span, not just lifespan. They want to maintain their physical independence well into their 60s, 70s, and beyond.
Right, they want to play golf, hike, garden, or get down on the floor with their grandchildren without needing 3 days to recover from it.
Because when you think about it, that is where declining mobility actually rears its head.
Yeah, you don't usually notice your joints are degraded when you are mid-sprint with adrenaline flooding your system. You notice it when the mundane mechanics of living become a burden.
So,
You notice it when walking up the subway stairs feels like a monumental chore. You notice it when rolling out of bed requires a 10-minute stretching routine just to stand up straight. Or when dropping your keys on the floor makes you hesitate because bending down actually hurts.
if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is why informed, fitness-conscious adults are adopting joint preservation protocols like biodynamics long before they suffer a catastrophic injury.
Being proactive instead of reactive.
Yes, they are refusing to wait until the joint is bone on bone. They are proactively flooding the joint with hydration to maintain their functional movement. because ultimately, movement efficiency is the single greatest predictor of your quality of life as you age.
It really makes you evaluate your own daily habits. I mean, ask yourself, what is the point of being able to deadlift twice your body weight for a single hour in the gym if the remaining 23 hours of your day are spent feeling trapped in a stiff, uncooperative body?
It forces a complete reevaluation of what the word fit even means. True, sustainable fitness is entirely dependent on preserving the mechanics of how your body moves rather than just measuring how much punishment it can endure.
So to bring everything together for this deep dive,
Mm,
the era of punishing your body into submission is officially over. The science has moved on, and the experts have moved on.
Thankfully.
Optimal health is no longer a game of blind intensity. It is about balancing your muscular strength with your movement quality. It is about understanding the microscopic mechanisms of your cartilage and ensuring that those biological sponges remain actively hydrated and lubricated so you can move without friction.
And as we close out, there's one final provocative concept from the research that I think is essential to consider, especially if you routinely ignore your own lingering aches.
Okay, let's hear it.
If our joints are fundamentally designed as complex biological shock absorbers that require a constant internal supply of viscous fluid to function, and our modern habits, whether that is sitting completely frozen at a computer screen for 9 hours or subjecting ourselves to relentless extreme exercise, are actively squeezing that fluid out without letting it replenish, how much of what we casually write off as normal aging is actually just a severe, entirely preventable drought happening inside our own cells? What if you aren't actually getting old? What if your joints are just incredibly thirsty?